complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization has to be the goal.
President Donald Trump has made it very clear this is what we want and what we expect.
North Korea says it wants phased and synchronized measures of denuclearization.
We know that North Korea has been masters at deception. Kim Jong-un may be stalling, buying time, but I don't think that President Trump will accept any kind of stalling tactic.
Verification is key, and we saw with the six-party talks.
With some 5,000 underground facilities, sites that we have no idea what is contained within them.
Trust but verify. I think the first step is a declaration of how many weapons they have and where those weapons are.
From the Voice of America, this is Washington Talk.
Hello and welcome to Washington Talk. I'm Eun-jung Cho. Ahead of the anticipated summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, there's a flurry of debate over the formula to denuclearize and reward North Korea. North Korea says it wants phased, synchronized measures, but how can the U.S. make sure this is not merely a stalling tactic?
"所以，我们呼吁各方要保持定力，排除干扰，坚定地沿着对话谈判的正确方向走下去。"
My guest today, Mr. David Maxwell, fellow at the Institute for Korean American Studies. Mr. Maxwell is a retired U.S. Army Special Forces colonel with command assignments in Korea, among other countries. Also joining us today, Ambassador Joseph DeTrani, former special envoy for the six-party talks during the Bush administration. Ambassador DeTrani also served as the director of National Counter-Proliferation Center. So great to have you both gentlemen back in our studio.
Great to be here.
Great. David, let me begin with you. North Korea says it wants phased and synchronized measures of denuclearization. Now, the Trump administration has been saying that it does not want to repeat past mistakes, but phased and synchronized sounds a lot like past deals with North Korea. So how would the Trump administration react to Kim Jong-un's idea of phased denuclearization deal?
Well, I think first of all, there has to be clarification on what that means, and I think we don't really know. But I do strongly agree that the Trump administration is not going to make the same past mistakes. Kim Jong-un may be stalling, buying time, but also there may be ways to develop a process that could lead to denuclearization, which, of course, is going to be our goal. Complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization has to be the goal. And I think that we have to see how it plays out. But I don't think that President Trump, the United States, President Moon, South Korea will accept any kind of stalling tactic. But again, there could be a process that I think could be discovered through continued dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Ambassador, the Trump administration has not specified what kind of denuclearization model it wants from North Korea, although the new national security advisor John Bolton, just days before he was appointed, said that the Libyan nuclear model should be the benchmark for North Korea. And he also said that the discussion should be on how to pack up their nuclear weapons program and take it to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. What is your reaction to this comment?
Well, my reaction is I think our position has been very clear. David mentioned that complete, verifiable, irreversible dismantlement. We did this with the joint statement in September 2005, where we said all North Korean nuclear weapons and nuclear weapons facilities must be dismantled in an irreversible, verifiable manner. Now, obviously, you have to stop everything before you dismantle it. It takes a bit of time. The first volley here is a declaration. They got to tell us what's there so we can move towards a verifiable dismantlement. So, yes, I think the U.S. position has always been very clear on this. I think the North Korean model is a North Korean model. Libya was Libya. North Korea is North Korea. North Korea is with nuclear weapons, a different relationship with North Korea. So I'd rather just focus on North Korea and not get into other areas. We know what we want with North Korea, and I think we're prepared to give Kim Jong-un what he says he wants, but we need to move forward and get a dialogue going and clarity, as David indicated, as to what his commitments will be, and indeed we will articulate our commitments.
Right. The U.S. stance has always been, as you said, complete, verifiable,
Always.
irreversible denuclearization.
Yes.
Whereas Ambassador John Bolton's comments, I think the emphasis here is on the immediate, because he said he wants the North Koreans to pack up their weapons and bring it to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So can this be done immediately in an instant manner?
Well, maybe if we had it all in one room, we could sort of pack it up and put it in, but that's not in one room.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of facilities.
Right.
There are facilities that possibly we're not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to declare what their facilities are. They need to declare how many nuclear weapons they are. They need to declare where those weapons are. They need to talk about the scientists and the technologists who are working it. So there's a lot of information that must be accrued, and then a process for dismantling it. It will take a bit of time, but obviously we shouldn't have extended periods of time, and I think that's important. There should be time limits to what we do here, but it's going to be not an immediate. What will be immediate will be a commitment to move forward in that fashion, and then it will be done in a very meticulous, verifiable way.
Now, David, from phased and synchronized to immediate and complete denuclearization, North Korea and the United States seems to be wide apart. How can the two sides narrow their differences, do you think?
Well, that's really the key to all of this. And what we haven't talked about, of course, is Kim Jong-un's definition of denuclearization. While we focus on the denuclearization of North Korea, I believe that his perspective is denuclearization of the entire peninsula. And in his construct, that means an end to the Korean-U.S. alliance, a peace treaty, removal of U.S. forces, because in the North's calculus, with the U.S. forces present, then the United States can bring and employ nuclear weapons. So we often talk past each other on denuclearization. And I think that that is one of the things that we have to be clear about. And I think that, as Ambassador DeTrani said, what has to be given to Kim Jong-un are the security assurances that we are in South Korea to defend our ally. And North Korea has been the aggressor since 1953. They initiated the Civil War. They attacked the South. They continue to threaten the South. And so our presence is to defend our alliance and to defend our blood ally, the South Koreans. And so denuclearization has to be North Korea, because they're the ones that have nuclear weapons on the peninsula. We do not.
Yeah, Ambassador, on that point, people are saying we don't want to watch same movie again. We don't want to buy same horse again. Right. So how can we make sure this time it's going to be different with North Korea?
Well, there are no assurances until you really get to the table and you get agreements, and then you move forward with the implementation of the agreements. And I think where we are now is we have President Donald Trump who said he is prepared to meet with Kim Jong-un, per the invitation from Kim Jong-un. That is the beginning, that's the opening volley. But indeed, the first volley is President Moon Jae-in is going to be meeting with Kim Jong-un at the end of this month. And I think we will get greater clarity as to what Kim Jong-un is talking about when he speaks about denuclearization. We're committed to denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That has never been an issue here. As Colonel Maxwell said, we have no nuclear weapons. And that happened with George H.W. Bush in 1992, where everything came off the peninsula. So there's no ambiguity on our side, but the ambiguity is on the side of Kim Jong-un and North Korea. What does he mean if he's committed to comprehensive, verifiable, irreversible dismantlement of all nuclear weapons and nuclear weapons programs? I think the U.S. and South Korea, but indeed China and our allies in Japan and Russia are prepared to move forward. And, I keep going back to it, but the model, I do think in the joint statement of 2005 incorporates all of the above. But what 2005, that joint statement, does not incorporate was nuclear weapons. At that time, North Korea did not have nuclear weapons. Now we're talking about an arsenal of nuclear weapons, and we need to get a declaration of how many weapons they have and where those weapons are, because that obviously is part of the dismantlement process.
And I would just add to that, I agree that the 2005 joint statement is a great place to start, but as the ambassador said, they now have nuclear weapons. And rather than a Libya model, and I agree with Ambassador DeTrani, we need a North Korean model, but we might better take some lessons from the Nunn-Lugar and how we dealt with nuclear weapons in the former Soviet states. That might be a process that would serve better than the Libyan model. And of course, I think from Kim Jong-un's perspective, the Libyan model for him is a threat to his security because of what happened to Muammar Gaddafi.
Ambassador, you mentioned about the declaration of the weapons, and I want to add to that. How can we make sure that North Korea is not deceiving us? How can we what are the important points for successful verification?
No, it's exactly right. Verification is key, and we saw with the six-party talks, it fell apart because of the verification when we asked North Korea to commit to a verification regime and to sign. There was a reaction from North Korea that they were not prepared to sign that commitment. Yeah, I think verification is going to be very key. Trust but verify. I think the first step is a declaration. We need to know the weapons, the facilities, and the people who've been working it. And then we need to have an agreement on the part of North Korea that we will have monitors on the ground who will have access to these facilities, to these individuals, but also, and this is with the IAEA, monitors always have this, we're simply saying we would like to inspect non-declared facilities also, just to confirm that there's nothing of a nuclear nature there. I think North Korea has to be very forthcoming and agree. These are principles that the United States has done with the former Soviet Union. All countries do this, where we open it up to IAEA monitors. In this case, there would be other monitors. It's not the IAEA, because North Korea is not a member of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. But I think this is all very doable.
Inspections are critical because we know that North Korea has been masters at deception. And with some 5,000 underground facilities, sites that we have no idea, what is contained within them, there has to be an inspection regime. And again, as the ambassador said, challenge inspections to be able to do that. Now, in 1999, North Korea did open up one of the suspected facilities, and during the Perry Policy Review, and it was inspected and found to be empty, which again to me is another indication of North Korea's deceptive practices there, and so that's why inspections are so important.
It's great listening to this from you who are directly involved in the six-party talks from 2003 to 2006. Right. David, what would be some kind of confidence-building measures that North Korea and the United States can take?
There are many things that can and should be done from a conventional military perspective. North Korea threatens Seoul. 25 million Koreans in the south are under artillery and rocket fire range from the Kaesong Heights, just north of the DMZ. As we have pulled back American forces south of Seoul, North Korea has more than 70% of their combat forces forward deployed along the demilitarized zone. A confidence-building measure would be repositioning their artillery out of range of Seoul. That would be one large confidence-building measure that would demonstrate trust, and that North Korea is no longer aggressively postured to attack the South.
Well, we'll end this conversation here, and I want to play the video for our next discussion.
김성은 동지께서 남측 예술단의 이번 평양 방문이 민족의 하나된 모습을 과시하는 의의 있는 계기가 되기를.
Olympics diplomacy is followed by K-pop diplomacy. Some of the biggest names in South Korean popular entertainment took to the stage in Pyongyang for the first time in 10 years. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was in the audience and said he was deeply moved by the performance. Now, David, this comment by Kim Jong-un is quite striking because in North Korea, regular North Koreans, when they listen to South Korean music, they are sent to the prison camps. So what is your take on Kim Jong-un and the elites openly watching South Korean performance? Your
question really leads to the contradiction and really the hypocrisy of the regime in the North. For the elite to be able to enjoy these wonderful performances from the South and the rank and file Koreans living in the North not being allowed to view or listen to that music just illustrates the control that the regime holds over the people. And this is not a regime that should continue to have that kind of hold over its people. And of course, the United Nations Commission of Inquiry in 2014 recognized the control of information and the lack of information getting to the Korean people living in the North as one of a human rights violation. And so this really reinforces that aspect that the elite can watch, but the rank and file Korean people cannot.
Ambassador, what are the political ramifications of such cultural exchanges to North Korea, including the latest South Korean concert, but also 2008 New York Philharmonic performance in North Korea? What are the ramifications?
If we're talking about confidence building, that's one thing to look at a performance, the Philharmonic, some pop groups, but do something of a substantive nature for North Korea. Return the 3 Americans who are still being detained in North Korea. For the Republic of Korea, permit the separated families to be reunited. The same thing for the Korean Americans in the United States. They have separated families in North Korea. Permit these exchanges. These are confidence building measures of a substantive, longer term nature. I think performances like this are fine. But it's very episodic. It's not very deep and substantive. But if it's the first volley and then it's followed by more substantive, meaningful, confidence-building measures, I'm very supportive of that.
And I think when you look at this from a holistic perspective, the North Korean delegation traveling to the Olympics, their performance troops and the like there, this really looks like Kim Jong-un is trying to present himself as a member of the international community, trying to raise his reputation.
Ambassador, do you think this was part of North Korea's propaganda tactic?
Oh, I think that's part of it. Yes, of course. They're reaching out. And it started with the Kim Jong-un's New Year's address, where he spoke about his willingness to participate in the Olympics, and although he was pretty nasty towards the United States in that New Year's address by saying these weapons are only directed at the U.S. and we're going to mass produce them now directed at the United States. But to our brethren in South Korea and China and Russia, it's okay, you could all relax. That's a little too much, but that's okay. But since then, with the Olympics and with these exchanges, yeah, I think it is part of that. The key is the substance, the follow-through, what is discussed, what is agreed to, and so forth. And now, once that's in play with the summit with President Moon Jae-in, and then with President Donald Trump, I think we will see if indeed we have something that will move us in a regional, in a global sense, towards a peaceful resolution to the North Korean nuclear issue.
Looking forward to that substance. We will end this conversation here and move on to our next segment. Now, time for the photo moment, a time to look at an interesting North Korea picture. The photo today is the first day of school at Pyongyang No. 4 Elementary School. In North Korea, a new academic year starts in April, and big ceremonies were held simultaneously across North Korea this week. On the top of this school building, we can see a well-known catchphrase, "Nothing to envy." David, what's your reaction?
Nothing to envy, a famous book that was written.
Right.
So I think, yes, nothing to envy. I think we see students in uniform, regimented, although smiling and happy. I think we should think about the lives that these beautiful young children have ahead of them if they continue to have to live under the despotic regime of the Kim family regime.
Ambassador?
What would I take from this photo? These young boys and girls, and then the people who were with them. That's great. They look happy, and there's prospects there, but there are 25 million people living in North Korea. And I think if we can get a resolution to the nuclear issue with North Korea, and North Korea become a more legitimate nation state, and they could be part of the community of nations, I think it would benefit these young boys and girls and others, because North Korea then will open up to foreign direct investment, and the whole situation will change for the people of North Korea, and that's the key.
Right. On that note, we'll end it here. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador David Maxwell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this was Washington Talk from the Voice of America, and I'm Eun Jung Cho. Join us next week for more analysis on North Korea.